Today's show is pretty cool because we're talking with an author of one of our favorite money books, Soldier of Finance.
That's right, guys. We read this book, Soldier of Finance, in probably about less than 48 hours.
Yeah, both of us, right?
Right, and it was life-changing. So we knew that we had to have Jeff come on our show to talk more about the book to you guys.
Yeah, Jeff Rose is the owner of GoodFinancialSense.com, and he wrote this amazing book. He's also a contributor to U.S. News and World Report, Market Watch, and Equifax.com. He's a certified financial planner, so he's got plenty of wisdom that he can share with us. So why don't we jump into the interview and see what he has to share? On the line, we have certified financial planner, blogger, author, all-around superstar, Jeff Rose. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Jeff. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Now, you wrote an awesome book that we're going to talk about called Soldier of Finance, which I think we read in, 24 hours? This is like one of our all-time favorite books. If you guys follow us on our YouTube channel, you know we put out a video where we talked about the 5 books that talk about finances that each one of you need to read. And of course, this book was on there. So we had to reach out to Jeff, and he was gracious enough to jump on the line with us and give us some of his wisdom. Before we jump into your advice, though, Jeff, can you give us a little background on yourself personally and professionally?
Yeah. So a little bit about myself. Currently, I reside in the state of Illinois, but the furthest I can be away from Chicago, not intentionally, it's just so happens that where we live in Southern Illinois, small town, USA. And I was actually born on the West Coast initially. I'm a huge In-N-Out Burger fan, which those who follow me on Twitter know that. My wife and I, we've got 3 young boys, 7, 5, and 3. And to say they are a handful is a huge understatement. We were just talking before we started the record button, how crazy it is with it having no school today. As you mentioned, I'm a blogger also have a financial planning practice. My own, I'm the CEO of Alliance Wealth Management. Been a financial advisor for 12, almost 13 years. Had to kind of think through the numbers there, but founded my own firm back in 2011 and just kind of did that really with what the reach I've got with my blog, GoodFinancialSense.com, and the book that you mentioned. And just really passionate about educating those on taking charge of their money, understanding their finances, and just getting their investments in order. It's also an Army National Guard veteran, served overseas in 2005, and a lot of other things I'm sure we'll dive into.
Great. Now, as we spoke about, you wrote a great book titled Soldier of Finance, which was phenomenal. It was one of my all-time favorites. Can you give our audience a little overview of the book?
Yeah, so where the book's inspiration came from was, as I mentioned, I was in the Army National Guard for 9 years. And whenever we went to basic training, each soldier was given a soldier's handbook. And this handbook was something that it's about the size of a brick. And we had to carry this on us anywhere we went. And this is something that you did not want to be caught without. Otherwise, you'd have to pay a price, usually paid through push-ups or being smoked in what order. And what this handbook was it was just basically all the basic tasks that we needed to be, turn ourselves from a civilian into a soldier. And this was just the basic things like the 3 general orders, all the ranks in the military, how to react to an ambush, how to apply first aid, to someone that's been shot or, something that just needs some type of help. So just all the basics that you would need. Anytime you come across a situation, your basic training, that's where you would go to get your answer. And when it came to personal finance, I didn't have that. I was a finance major in college, and it wasn't just by the grace of God, basically being stumbled upon to becoming a financial advisor, because even though I was a finance major, I knew nothing. I didn't know what a 401k was. I didn't know what a Roth IRA was. I really couldn't explain to you what a mutual fund was, which is embarrassing, but that's just how our school structure was set up. So I didn't have that handbook that I needed. And a lot of it was trial and error and through learning through a lot of people's, their shortcomings, just meeting with clients over the years. And, so the inspiration was, how can I create a handbook, a training guide to help others that are in that same situation that don't want to end up in too much debt, don't want to wake up when they're 50 years old and don't have enough savings. And, that's what the inspiration of what the book is really about.
I think finance for a lot of people is like being in combat, like they're up against an enemy. And a lot of people are facing a losing battle right now. That's why I think the premise of your book is so awesome, because it is like a blueprint of combat. You know, I did 12 years in the Army as well. And I was able to run through this book because I got all the acronyms and I was reminiscing about my SMART book and everything else. And I think that.
Well, what about me? I didn't do any of that.
Yeah, you were able to identify. I mean, I think you read the book faster than I did.
Right.
But in your experience, because you are a certified financial planner, what is the most common mistake that people are making with their money?
I think the biggest mistake is just being completely naive to your financial situation. And that you can apply that through so many fronts, but you know, just a few examples that I see all the time are individuals that have no idea what their credit score, or that have never checked their credit report to see if there might be any errors on there, just demolishing their credit. It's those that are, maybe they have a 401k, you know, they signed up and they're putting in 3%, 5%, or maybe even 10%, you know, out of their paycheck, but they have no idea, you know, where their money is actually being invested. You know, they just kind of like blindly put it in and hope that their employer has selected some good investments for them. You know, or that's somebody that has credit card debt or has some student loan debt, but they really don't know what the total amount of debt is, or what the interest rate that they're paying, what the interest is that they're paying on that debt. And I just think people are just so naive to what's going on in their finances just because they're like, I don't have to worry about that right now. I've got so much time. You know, I'll worry about that later. You know, unfortunately, later gets here so much sooner than we could ever expect it to. And that's why so many people find themselves, you know, either in too much debt, not enough savings, and just, you know, in a world of financial hurt.
Yeah, I agree all the way. Now, a foundational pillar of your book is accountability. And I got emotional when I think about the terms Battle Buddy and Blue Falcon. For every veteran out there listening, a certain amount of emotion comes up in them. Now, for those who aren't familiar with those two terms, explain what a Battle Buddy is versus a Blue Falcon and how that applies to their finances.
Sure. You know, the Battle Buddy, you know, once again, I was introduced to that concept of basic training, and each soldier was assigned another Battle Buddy, and that individual was, you know, we were responsible for each other. So if I didn't shine my boots, then guess what? Me and my Battle Buddy both got smoked. You know, if I didn't have my training handbook, you know, on me, guess what? My Battle Buddy and I both got smoked. And not only was it just being responsible for, you know, the daily responsibilities, but we also had to know everything about our Battle Buddy. And we had to know what they were going through, where they came from, what their upbringing was, you know, all those little details. And we would occasionally get quizzed to make sure that we understood that. You know, in your financial life, you have to have a Battle Buddy, especially if it's, you know, whether it's saving for retirement or trying to get out of debt. You know, those are some of the hard things to do. And just having somebody that keeps you responsible and to hold you accountable. And the story I shared in my book was my wife, you know, my girlfriend at the time. I had just started being a financial advisor, and I was still dealing with some debt issues, some debt habits that was transferred for me just, you know, from my parents. And I just remember I clearly wanted to buy a flat screen TV. And this is when 42-inch flat screen TVs were like, they were it. Like, you had one of those, you were like legit. And I didn't have one of those. I had the 32-inch TV that was like 3 feet deep, you know, the thing weighed about 5. The big back, absolutely. You know, like that was my TV. And I remember I'd been working as a financial advisor for about a year, and I just felt I deserved it. Now, for those that are in this industry, typically, you know, as a first year, second year financial advisor, I mean, you're not making a whole lot of money. I mean, you're helping a lot of people, but it takes time to build that up. And I in no way deserved any type of big screen TV. You know, I still had some student loan debt. I still had credit card debt. And I just remember my girlfriend, now wife at the time, just called me out. She said, you know, do you really think you need that right now with all the debt that you've got going on? And, you know, that was pretty bold, because it was like, I didn't want to hear that. I remember actually being upset with her. Initially, I didn't really voice it to her, but I just remember internalizing, thinking, how dare her say that? Like, I deserve this. I'm working hard. But it was those hard words I needed to hear. And with the Blue Falcon, you know, that's just basically, you know, the anti-Battle Buddy. That's just somebody that is going to sabotage you, or they're not going to, you know, help you and say those be accountable for the situations you need to hear it. You know, in that instance there, if her being a Blue Falcon would have been, hey, let's go to Best Buy and get that TV right now. You know, even though she was trying, maybe she loved me, she thought that was trying to make me feel good, but that's not what I needed to hear. I mean, I needed to hear what she told me, and that's what made her just a true Battle Buddy.
And people would probably look at you now and think that you've always had it together. However, in the Soldier of Finance book, we read, you know, that you made many mistakes when it came to your finances. What was the biggest financial mistake that you had to overcome?
Whew, man, I probably have to say, you know, has to do with, you know, to me, like joining the National Guard, that was at that point in my life, I was a college dropout, really was going nowhere. And just getting into the military, that was a huge change for me. Just got to me the discipline to get through school and whatnot. But the one thing it didn't give me was I still didn't have, I gained a lot of discipline in getting my schooling done, I still lacked a lot of the financial discipline that I needed. And even though I was in the National Guard, even though I had my schooling paid for, my last 2 semesters, I fully maxed out my student loans. In addition to that, I had credit card debt and I remember I had a Discover card, had like a $10,000 limit. I don't think I maxed out, but I got pretty dang close. And there was another card as well. So I had all this debt, even though my schooling was paid for, and I was still in the Guard and working, I think it was like 20, 30 hours a week while I was in school. So I had plenty of money, but yet I wanted to, as I called it, I wanted to keep up with the college age Joneses. You always say keep up with the Joneses. Right. Well, I want to keep up with the college age Joneses and, just going out with friends and, going on spring break and just buying clothes. And the sad thing is, I have nothing to show for any of that. But I just think that's a common mistake that people, especially college age people, is that, I just remember talking to so many people that, I'm only going to have $20,000 of debt. I'm only going to have $40,000 of debt. I'll get a job, pay me $40,000. I'll pay that off in no time. But the reality is no, you won't, because after you make $40,000 and you pay taxes and you pay your rent or mortgage and you pay a car payment and everything else, you got nothing left over, and you got a student loan payment. Sorry, going off a tangent, but no,
no, you're good.
I think the biggest mistake for me definitely was getting into debt when I had absolutely no reason to do so.
Now, tell me, why is good money management such a difficult skill for most people to master?
I think it's so hard because just kind of going back to me being a finance major, and even though I was a numbers guy, I didn't understand just some of the basics of when it comes to budgeting and just living within my means, because it's just not taught to us. I know with my parents, they had a lot of debt problems. I inherited some of those, but one thing they didn't really give me as well was, I think every parent's going to tell their kid, hey, you need to save for the future, save for later on. You need to save. But they never really give you the A to Z, okay, go out and do this, go out and do this. My parents, my dad, he had a mutual fund. I remember him telling the story, but he never really told me how to actually go buy a mutual fund. He never walked me through some of those basics. And I just think that's a lot of it, is just that, if parents aren't giving those lessons, they just think, they'll learn that on their own. But unfortunately, by the time they learn that, they're in college and they're taking out student loans, and they're already in debt and already struggling. And if we learn that stuff so much sooner, it's just going to give us so much more an advantage, over others that don't have that.
For someone who truly has a desire to become good with their money, what's step 1 for them?
I think step 1 is just being in tune with what's going on with your finances, and I hate to say the B word, the whole budget thing, because, and I think you got this from my book, I hate budgeting. I absolutely hate it. But at the same token, I get it. I get it. I remember one of the first times that I think I was still in college, and I remember I bounced a check because I was working out at the time. I wanted to buy some protein powder, some creatine. I was, making decent money for someone who was in college, and I remember that I bounced a check and had to pay whatever the canceled check was fee. And, my dad just he felt bad for me, but he's like, you know what, you're going to have to learn your lesson. But I didn't budget then. My way of budgeting was going to the ATM and getting the receipt showing me how much was my checking account, which, isn't accurate because it takes time for things to settle. So that's why that backfired. But I think, that's the most valuable thing, is just you have to have some idea what's going on with your finances. And if you got a paycheck coming in, make sure you know what you got coming in versus what you got going out. I mean, that's the basics of it. And, if you can at least master some of that, because once you kind of get a gist of it, it's so much easier. But the ones that don't budget at all, they're just always behind. They're always just trying to chase something that they're never going to get because they're just not really in tune with what's going on.
Now, you, like us, have been on both sides of the fence, where you were once in debt, now you're debt free. Compare life then to life now for you.
Wow. It's so funny now because it's been so long trying to remember how that was, just having that stress of knowing that student loan debt was there, knowing that credit card debt was there, and just thinking, I was naive as well, telling myself, it's only $20,000 of debt. Yeah, I mean, only until that next monthly payment comes up that you have to write, that check for $300 or $400, and you're just like, oh my gosh, where is that going to come from? And just have to worry about month to month, how things are going to work out. And, compare that today where it's like, it's not even an issue. I don't even think about that stuff. It's, then it was like all damage control, whereas now it's just like always forward thinking, just thinking about the next bigger, better thing that's going to come along, with the business or whatever we're focusing on our next financial goal. Yeah, man, it's just, it's night and day, totally night and day.
What type of impact did the debt elimination have on your marriage?
When my wife called me out at the time, like I said, we were dating, and we didn't talk a lot about it until then. And luckily for her to call me out at the beginning, that really set the stage, for our marriage. So basically, when we finally did get married, we were both in agreement. She was basically on board to help me pay my debt off. And I was very fortunate in a sense where, I was paying it off, making good strides towards it. And then once I was deployed to Iraq, a lot of that initial money that, I got paid while I was deployed, that was our first goal was, let's pay it off. Let's be completely debt free. After that, then was getting so much in cash savings. And after that, then was maxing out our Roth IRAs. But, we had some of those important discussions in the beginning and just helped us out. And I just remember that was when I came back from Iraq, like that was just our thing was, we were not going to have any credit card debt whatsoever. That was just never again. And it's something that we held true. And there were some times that I kept thinking, hey, we can just do this. We'll pay it off. And she's like, no. And I'm like, all right, that's why I married you. She kept me on point.
Nice. Now, I got to say, I know for a fact that there's people in the audience listening right now who just don't see it. They don't see that light at the end of the tunnel. They don't feel like being debt free is possible. There's just too much to overcome. What advice could you give them?
I think when you have this amount of debt, and for everybody, it's different. It could be anywhere from 10,000 on up to 90,000, whatever that number is, it probably just seems, unsurmountable that you're never going to be able to do it. But I think, the first thing is that you just have to have a plan, stop being in denial about how much debt you have. I remember a meeting I had several years ago with some potential new clients, and they had their house paid off, they had decent amount of savings. I wish they would have had more. And I just remember talking about debt. And I said, how much debt do you have? Like, we don't have that much. So I was like, well, what does that mean? You don't have that much. And, they were just kind of like shooting from the hip, giving me some numbers. And they knew they had some higher interest debt, but they couldn't give me the exact amount. And then I was like, all right, here's your homework. I want you to tell me to the penny, how much debt you have and, what the interest rates are on each of the debts that you also have. And about a week later, I get an email and, they did the homework and it turns out they had over $50,000 of consumer debt. And I'm like, wait a second, you just told me you just had a little bit of debt. Like, I'm not sure what world you're living in, but to me, having $50,000 of debt ain't, that's more than a little bit of debt. But, it was forcing themselves to actually sit down and see where the debt was, how much they were paying. And then it was just developing a game plan, what they were going to pay off. And if you go at this blindly and not have any type of plan, any type of goal whatsoever, it's just not going to happen. You're just going to go through the motions, and you're never going to be able to celebrate the little wins. Because when you have $87,000 of debt, I don't know why that number's on my head, but if you got $87,000 of debt, it just seems like you're never going to get it. But of that debt, maybe you've got a $2,000 or $3,000 Target card or some department store card. And, maybe that's your first goal. Like, hey, that's the smallest one. I'm going to pay that off first just to give yourself some momentum and give you something to celebrate. And, and celebrating those small wins along the way is huge. It's the same thing for somebody trying to approach weight loss is, you're trying to lose 30 pounds. That just almost seems impossible. But instead of focusing on 30 pounds, focus on losing that first 2 or 3. It's like focus on the little wins and make sure you celebrate them because those are huge accomplishments.
Absolutely. Now, Jeff, can you please tell everyone where they can find out more information about your book, Soldier of Finance, and how can they purchase it?
Yeah, if you Google Soldier of Finance, you'll probably find it on my blog, goodfinancialsense.com. You can purchase online. Amazon is there. If you got a Barnes & Noble close to you, I think, no, it is in there. It should be. If not, tell them to order it. But Amazon is probably the easiest because, if you got Amazon Prime, which I love, it'll be at your doorstep in a day or two.
Awesome. Now, Jeff, you got 2 websites that you're running, goodfinancialsense.com and marriagemore.com. Tell our audience about those.
Yeah, so Good Financial Sense, CNTS, that is my main blog. That's my main hub. From there, at the bottom, you will find 5 other websites that I also run. But Good Financial Sense is kind of like the main hub. And you'll find anything from retirement planning to entrepreneurship to setting goals and how to setting good financial habits and whatnot. But as you mentioned, Marriage More, that's something my wife and I, was another name 3 years ago. We recently just rebranded last fall. Well, actually, no, we rebranded here recently. But, my wife and I are just, she has her own blog that she runs. And we have just, with our 2 online blogs that we run, just a common thread that people have always asked us is just a lot of marriage-based questions. Just how do you guys do it? With 3 kids, how do you keep the spice alive? And it was just something that God just really put in our heart that, just something, a way for we can give back, to help those young couples, kind of like how with Good Financial Sense, I want to help, younger people and anyone that wants to take charge of their financial life. We want to help people with marriages, just prevent divorces and just have a very long, loving, lasting marriage. And, just sharing, kind of like the financial life that, some of the financial blunders I've had in my past, same thing with our marriage. We've had a lot of ups and downs, and, luckily we've, through a lot of prayer, a lot of grace, we've got through those. And I just want to be able to inspire those to, that are a rough patch in their marriage, that, show you that, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and maybe we can give you some inspiration to get there.
We've been talking with Jeff Rose, one of our fellow bloggers and author of one of our favorite money books, Soldier of Finance. Thanks for coming on the show, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Jeff Rose, the author of Soldier of Finance. Man, that was some great advice he gave us.
Absolutely.
I think that this thing that we're in against our money is a battle. It's a war. We are in combat. And for some of us, we are losing the battle, but you don't have to. You don't have to. I think that Soldier of Finance is a great book because you can kind of picture it. You can kind of feel the advice. You can put yourself as a soldier up against this war against trying to get a hold of your money.
Right. What I love about the book the most, it gives you a plan of attack, step by step, what you can do to conquer this debt once and for all. So guys, we'll definitely put links in the show notes of where you guys can grab the book, and you can also visit Jeff Rose's site, goodfinancialsense.com, to find out more information there too.
It's time to soldier up, become a soldier of finance, and let's win this war against debt. Let's become debt free. It is hustle season.
Let's do it. All right, guys, don't forget, visit us over at our website at hisandhermoney.com.
Check us out on Instagram at hisandhermoney. Here it is. No matter where you are on the road to financial freedom, the key is to start now
and finish strong.
Thanks for tuning in to the His and Her Money Show. For more information on how to win with your finances, be sure to visit www.hisandhermoney.com.